welcome back to the Gaelic Gridiron podcast. We have a fantastic episode in store for you today. And with me is the General Manager of NFL UK and now Ireland, Mr. Henry Hodgson. Henry, happy Monday. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Jimmy. How are you doing?
I am fantastic. I'm fantastic. It's raining here, but we'll keep the spirits up. It's going to be a good week. I can feel it. Henry, first of all, congratulations on the expanded role. NFL UK, of course, growing now to include Ireland. Tell me a bit about how that came about.
Yeah, I think Jimmy, it's probably something that had been happening for a long time, but we probably hadn't let people know. So partly it was just making sure that everyone was aware that for us in the NFL, UK had meant for a long time, and now certainly outwardly we wanted to make sure people understood that it includes Ireland as well, in terms of us wanting to grow the fan base, to engage with our existing NFL fans, and really sort of grow the sport as much as we can do.
So obviously, I mean, you could see that the passion was growing there massively in Ireland. I suppose was it kind of a natural move on the NFL UK's behalf to include Ireland in that market and in that sphere of NFL UK?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think we already knew that there was a fan base there. We've obviously seen with 3 clubs now investing in the market, 3 GMP clubs deciding that they wanted to invest in Ireland, the island of Ireland, in the Pittsburgh Steelers, the New York Jets, and Jacksonville Jaguars. As I say, it was part of our intent and part of our mission already to grow fandom in Ireland. But with the combination of that and those clubs wanting to invest there, we felt like it made more sense for us to be calling it out explicitly that is exactly what we're doing.
Henry, you've been with the NFL now for more than 20 years. So can you tell me a bit about your journey and how you arrived at the point you're at now here as general manager?
Yeah, I'll give you the short version, Jimmy, I think, because otherwise we might be here for another 20 years. But I fell in love with the sport as a kid in the UK in the early 80s. Realized that it was something that I was passionate about. Got very lucky and age 16 wrote to the NFL, which had just opened up an office in London, and said I'd love to come and intern. Got a chance to do that. Came back again on multiple occasions after that when NFL Europe was around, and so I got a chance to work for the London Monarchs. Subsequent to finishing my education and university and everything, did a couple of other jobs, but then got a chance to come back to the NFL really as NFL Europe was shifting over to Germany a lot. But at the same time, there was a real focus on what can we do in the UK. And had an opportunity to work on those very first games that took place in London. Then got a chance to go and work in the US, which I did for 12 years, the last 6 of which were in a role which was brand new, focused on international marketing and fan development. So really, how do we grow the sport outside of the US? And then a couple of years ago now, got the opportunity to come back to the UK in my role that I'm in currently. So that was the very quick version of the story, but lots of twists and turns. But I suppose, all the way through it, it's really, a focus of I'm passionate about the sport, I'm passionate about the NFL and about fandom internationally, and have done my best to work to continue to grow that across the world.
Having, I suppose, been involved at the early stages of that international marketing and growth and development piece, it must be very rewarding for you now to see how that's come to fruition with the obvious keen investment on the NFL's behalf, and with the whole global marketing thing as well. So there must be a great sense of pride there for you.
Yeah, there really is. I think, at the moment, and I've said this recently a lot, I think at the moment, over those 20 years, there's never been a moment where international has been prioritized as much as it is now. So I think that is pretty incredible where we are. And it seems like there are headlines almost on a weekly basis, new things, new initiatives, new programs, big stories related to international within the NFL, which is incredibly positive. And you're right. It shows that some of the things that we've been doing over the last 20 years are beginning to pay off, and there's real kind of upside for the NFL internationally.
Since you've been directly overseeing the NFL in the UK, talk to me about how much the game has grown there, because it really has taken off in the past 12 to 18 months, I think.
I mean, I think honestly, I would say it's been a sustained progress really over 20 plus years. I think there are lots of things that have moved along. You're absolutely right, and some of them more recently. But Alistair Kirkwood, who was in the role that I'm in now for a long time prior to me being in the position, really sort of laid the groundwork for a lot of these programs. The Player Pathway program sort of came up under him. The NFL Academy, obviously the London Games, I worked with him directly on those. So I think a lot of it is I would say is hard work that's been put in and groundwork that's been done over a long period of time. And some of those things are just coming to fruition or probably being seen more publicly now. I would say that on top of that, some of the work that the Global Market Program clubs are doing really kind of amplifies a lot of the work that we've done before now. And up until now, it's been a lot of hard work by a few people with limited resources, etc. But with the clubs now involved, we have, if you like, 6 or 7 times the bandwidth to do the things that we want to do. And that really helps us and has helped move things along very quickly as well.
We've really seen an exponential, kind of almost unprecedented growth in interest in the NFL in Ireland in the past few months. So in your opinion, what are some of the main factors behind that from your position, your perspective?
Yeah, I would say probably it's always been there. I think, a lot of these markets, it feels like there's an explosion of fandom, but actually I suspect the fandom's been there for a long time. There have just been quite a lot of headlines recently in Ireland that have helped bring the fans out of the woodwork and sort of help them all realize that there are lots of you out there. And, I think in Ireland, especially over the last few months, that has been those GMP clubs coming into the markets, the Steelers and Jags first, and then the Jets this year, and then some of the activities that they've put on. So both of the Jags and Steelers, who had a whole year at this, have done a really good job of putting things in the market and getting people excited by it. So I think that's one element, and then obviously the recent success of Tig Leader and some of the kicking camps he's put on to develop kickers, some of whom are now making their way into the NFL, I think is another sort of factor and has brought, again, a lot more people out of the woodwork to say, oh yeah, well, I've always loved this. And I think that's really, part of the thing is just that, the fans have been there, but now there's a real reason to bring them together in Ireland.
We also saw a massive upswing in media coverage this year, particularly here in Ireland, given who was involved in the IPP, the International Player Pathway Program. And one of those, I suppose, the star was Lewis Rees-Zammit, obviously. So, I mean, who is now signed with the Chiefs. How do you think he's going to get on in the NFL?
I think he will do great. I mean, I think Lewis is, he's made this commitment. He obviously was at the top of his game in rugby. He's made this commitment now to come to the NFL, which is a big thing even to do, before he'd been signed, probably bigger at that moment because he didn't know what his future was going to look like. He committed himself fully during that process, did a fantastic job at the camp at IMG in Florida, which was run by James Cook, who's one of the coaches, the head coach of that program. And throughout, James was reporting back to us, how committed and how much of a good job Lewis was doing. I was lucky enough to go and see him at their pro day in Florida and saw in real time what he and the other guys had achieved, and saw just how interested the scouts were, that all 32 teams were represented there. So it was fun to see, just how much interest there is. And then I think, he had a lot of teams interested in him, went on a bunch of trips to visit teams. But the reality is he's landed in probably as good a spot as he could have done with the Chiefs. Because I suppose obviously, they're Super Bowl champions. That doesn't hurt, but the pressure's off to some extent because
Yeah.
he doesn't need to immediately contribute to that team. But on the other hand, I think he'll have every opportunity to. I think the kickoff change in rules there will probably play to some of his strengths, some of the skills that he obviously developed in rugby. And then I think Andy Reid is known as the godfather of kind of making sure that versatile, skilled, fast players can pretty quickly make an impact on the field. And I think they'll find ways, if they can do through mini camp and training camp, to get Lewis involved and see if he's ready to take that step. But he has that commitment. He's got 3 years there. Which means that if it doesn't happen in year one, he'll continue to develop there.
We also saw a significant contingent of Irish players involved in the IPP this year for the first time, which was a historic moment. And certainly back home here, watching that, it was like it was spine tingling, and that's not an exaggeration. It really was. I mean, it was fantastic to see how far Ireland has come in terms of it was always kind of there. I mean, but this really put it to the forefront. And obviously, Charlie Smith getting signed by the Saints was just incredible. So can you see more and more Irish players becoming involved with the IPP in the future? And is this the main pipeline or route for Irish players to get to the NFL?
I would say yes, there will certainly be more Irish players. Our scouts, the people who are involved in the Player Pathway program, are looking for the most talented players wherever they are in the world. So there will be opportunities there for sure. It seems like kicking, especially with Gaelic football and with rugby in Ireland, there's a natural lean in that direction, and I think Tig's done a great job of identifying some of those guys this time around, and I'm sure we'll want to continue to do that and potentially find some of those kids at a younger age. Talking about whether the IPP is the only pathway, I think the other one is the NFL Academy. So actually, the NFL Academy this year has an Irish kicker, a guy called Andy Quinn. He's just about to graduate from the academy, but he was someone that was found through one of Tig's programs and has come to the academy. And one of the things we've talked about is how do we get more of these Irish players at a younger age who obviously have a phenomenal talent for kicking and get them to be part of the NFL Academy program. So I think the IPP kind of short term, and Charlie's story is obviously a wonderful one with the Saints, but I suspect even in the next few days, we're going to hear more about some of these other Irish guys getting opportunities in the NFL, which will be incredibly exciting. But I think longer term, we will be able to find more players and put them through that program, as well as find younger kickers and see if we can get them to the NFL Academy and then have a more traditional pathway into the NFL through college football.
And hopefully as well, I mean, obviously we are a country of kickers. It's our natural state from GAA and rugby, but hopefully as well we'll see non-kickers, receivers, running backs, even maybe some linemen who come from rugby, getting that opportunity as well in the NFL Academy, because I think that the skill set is there. They just need the opportunities, right?
Yep, that's exactly it, and that's what the NFL Academy is designed to do. That if there are young people in Ireland who want to try this pathway, then the NFL Academy is designed to help them do that. And so, we can, if they want to go and check out the NFL Academy website, they can find out all the ways that they can apply, and we'd love to have more Irish players involved.
So back in Vegas in February for the Super Bowl, which seems so long ago now, there was 2 new locations for international games announced, those being Brazil and Madrid. How did the game in Spain come to be? I mean, obviously it's the first game in Spain. So tell me a little bit about that, if you can, about how that decision process went.
Yeah, so I suppose the starting point is that at the end of last year, the NFL owners voted to expand the number of international games from 4 to 8. So that gave us the opportunity to look at more venues or more cities that could host international games. So, that, I suppose, Brazil had been announced before that. And that was as a result of then not being the potential to play a game in Mexico this year, as that stadium gets renovated ahead of the World Cup in the US and North America in 2026. So Brazil was sort of the first step there, but then the expansion to 8 really meant we had to look at more cities, and Madrid had, been of interest. Obviously, Spain is a huge market, but also that stadium had just been renovated, and I think there was a lot of excitement on both sides to see if an NFL game could be played there. So work was done to see if the stadium was going to be suitable, how much the city would support that, etc. And that was how Madrid got announced, as you said, around Super Bowl week. I think that process is now something that we're continuing to look at, because we've got to get we want to get at some point in the near future to 8 games per year. And so that process of looking at different cities and the stadiums within those cities that could host NFL games is an ongoing one. And, this summer, I think we'll be looking at others across Europe and around the rest of the world to see, where else could we potentially play games.
What are some of the criteria that go into selecting a host city for an international NFL game? Is it obviously market size, stadium availability, that kind of thing?
Yeah, it's really a combination of a lot of different things. I think, market size and what we know about our fan base already in the market is an important piece. Stadium availability, or just, feasibility of stadiums. So, are they literally, is the field large enough? That's often not the case in some soccer stadiums, because the field's a bit shorter. Is there the locker room space in the stadium, etc.? So that's really kind of the study that our operations team would do in stadiums around the world, and have done in the stadiums that we played in to date. But then beyond that, I think we look at the city. Are there enough hotels to support all of the first of all the teams that will be coming in, but then also all the fans that we'd expect to be coming in from that market and from around the world to be around this game. Is the city going to support us? What type of logistics will they help us with when it comes to wanting to put on other events around the city? There's all kinds of pieces that we want to make sure are all in place, so that we can put on not just a game in a market, but the best possible event and best possible weekend that we can do in a market. And I think that's important. That's what's expected of the NFL, really, is to put on something that kind of transcends some of the local sports in terms of the occasion and the show. But in order to be able to do that, we need real support from the cities that we're going to play the games in.
Well, Henry, I think a natural follow-on question for me here is Dublin in those plans for an NFL game?
Yeah, Dublin is one of the cities that, as I mentioned, we plan on looking at various cities this summer and doing that sort of feasibility study of an NFL game. And Dublin's one of the cities that will be doing that in this year. We obviously know that college football has played games in Dublin now for several years at the Aviva Stadium. The NFL's played a preseason game before in Dublin when the Steelers and Bears played each other. I think it was 1997 at Croke Park. So, it's a city that as we've mentioned, we know there's a fan base. We know there's interest in the sport. We think there are probably 2 viable stadiums, but that's obviously something that our operations team needs to look at. And then we plan on sort of trying to figure out, is it something that the city would want to support? Is it something that people would want to have in Dublin and want the NFL to come there? And, that process is something that we'll run through this summer, and then weigh it up against some of the other options that we have across Europe and around the rest of the world.
Well, I think I speak for all NFL fans in Ireland when I say we could definitely support an NFL game in Dublin. Henry, before we kind of finish up, talk to me a little bit about the plans for the future. Obviously some fantastic work has been done already by NFL UK. But what do you guys have planned, I suppose, to continue driving that momentum now?
Yeah, I think for us, participation is incredibly important. I think you've seen how much flag football has grown over the last couple of years, and especially since the announcement that flag football will be in the Olympics. So we one of the things that we have planned for Ireland and a real focus for us is to get flag football into schools across Ireland, across the island of Ireland. In the near future, I think that's really important. There's certainly a strong correlation between kids playing the sport and then actually getting into following the sport. And we think it's natural, right? You guys love Gaelic football, you love rugby, and there's elements, so I suppose, of both of those sports that come to life in American football and in flag football. And so I think that's something that we think that getting into schools there would do great. And we know that between the Steelers, Jets, and Jaguars, those teams that have invested in Ireland, they kind of feel the same way as well. So I would suspect between the NFL and between those teams, there'll be flag football being played very soon in Ireland. And then, like I said, I think, flipping the rocks over to find the most talented athletes in Ireland and see if they'd like to play American football through the IPP or through the NFL Academy are two of the other things that will definitely come online. And I think we would expect, based on just how talented the guys that were part of the program this year, that there are more of them out there, and we look forward to them seeing if they would like to join us on that journey.
You've obviously had a fantastic career with the NFL so far, and I'm sure a long time still to go, hopefully for us anyway. But what's, if you could pick one moment from your career with the NFL that stood out to you as maybe the coolest thing you've ever experienced, what would that be?
I'm going to hedge my bets and do a couple. I think the very first game in London in 2007, when we'd been working for a couple of years on getting that game to happen in London, and I just remember kind of the moment of kickoff of that game, and hearing the roar in the stadium when the ball got kicked off and people taking pictures and all that stuff. I think that's always, and I think ever since then, really, those games in London, and then I've been lucky enough to be part of them in Mexico and Germany and other places as well. I think anytime you kind of see the hard work that you've done to put these games on kind of pay off with fans having an amazing time, you suddenly feel, that tremendous sense of achievement. So that's certainly one of them. I think the other one, and why I'm sort of glowing today coming off of the draft, is that player pathway program has been very special to me. I've been lucky to be involved in that since day one. It was awesome seeing Travis Clayton, a British guy, getting drafted by the Buffalo Bills yesterday. I was the first two times we had players from that program drafted and on the ground at the NFL draft. I was there with Moritz Boehringer and with Jordan Mailata. So just sort of those moments, seeing how much hard work these young men had put in, and how unlikely it seemed that even a couple of months earlier that this would be something that could happen to them, and then seeing it happen and being around that, it's very emotional and a really cool moment to be a part of. So I think those are probably, if I can pick two, those would be two of my favorite things to have done during my career.
And final question, Henry, and thank you again so much for your time. It's been a real pleasure talking to you. From all your time as a fan, way back, going as far back as the early 80s, and those were your words, not mine, so I'm not trying to age you here at all.
All right.
What is if you could pick one, what is your favorite of all time football memory?
Wow, that's a really difficult one. I mean, again, probably, the type of thing that really instilled the passion that I have today for the sport was being at some of those preseason games, those American Bowl games at Wembley Stadium, now in the mid 80s, I suppose, or mid to late 80s, where was that really, I think, and this is why I'm a firm believer in us playing international games, because I think once you've attended one of those games and felt the energy, and it's one thing to see it on TV, but once you're actually there and you're around it, it's hard not to fall in love with it. So I'm not sure I can pick out a specific play or a specific moment, but certainly being at some of those games that took place at the old Wembley Stadium in the mid to late 80s, in preseason games, not games that will be remembered by many people, but those were really meaningful moments for me as a fan, sort of being around the sport.
Well, Henry, it definitely is fantastic for us here to have such a passionate person and a fan at the helm of the NFL, UK, and Ireland. Thank you again for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you, and wish you all the best. And look forward to seeing what the NFL, UK, and Ireland does next.
Thank you, Jimmy. It's great to be on here with you, and congratulations to you for everything you're doing. Again, I say it often, but I think people like yourself doing the things that you're doing to create content and to help grow the fan base in Ireland is it's part of the ingredients for success. We need you guys to be sort of telling the story and getting other people in Ireland excited and creating the content that you do to do that. So thank you very much. It's great to be on here with you. And congrats on everything you've done.
We do our best. Henry, thanks very much, and we'll talk soon. Take care, man.
Okay.